So let's bring Google into this, and I think building off the point you just mentioned, Michael, those spots that have aired on the Academy Awards and on the Super Bowl, to a degree, were Mindshare and Ogilvy, but Mindshare in particular, channeling users, frankly, user-generated content. And I think it was Nick who mentioned, providing the right kind of leadership for that branded content, but nonetheless channeling consumer passion around the brand. The note here on the screen is, how do you both possibly see Google, and how much do you see it as a threat to your business models as they continue to look and find ways to distribute their own tools directly to the consumer, so consumers can increasingly become to act as their own sort of agency, perhaps, or creative resource?
Well, I just want to add one thing before you answer the question, Maria. On this stage last year, Dominic, you talked, as I recall, taking the word from Martin Sorrell of the frenemy, which is still a word that's out there in the marketplace, and if I'm not mistaken, you talked about it last year. So, how do you both view that here a year later?
Okay, I think Google is definitely a threat, but it's a good threat. I think it's a healthy threat. I mean, I think it sparkles on our imagination. I think it makes us be more demanding with our own selves, because every threat does that. So I think it's a healthy threat. It's a frenemy. I like the word frenemy. But even Google, I mean, we have seen how Google click-through rates are getting low, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, what's going to be next. You were talking about consolidation a few minutes ago. I remember when the AOL Time Warner thing happened, it seemed like the end of the consolidation. I look at that today, we're not even talking about it anymore. We're talking about Google, DoubleClick, Microsoft, Yahoo. So the consolidation that seemed to be the end of the world very few years ago, it's like nothing compared to the consolidation that we're talking about today. So the world goes on, and we need to be able to deal with the new things that are coming, and none of those are the last thing that is going to happen. So we better be ready to deal with many more things.
Yeah, quite right. I mean, Google certainly is a threat, and the more often they go on platforms to say they're not threatening our business, the more I'm certain that they are. But the bigger threat, yeah, absolutely, and fine. I mean, why not have a competitive? This business has always been very competitive. The bigger threat, therefore, is not whether Google are going to try and disintermediate us and go straight to clients. The bigger threat is that we do not, as a media agency business, re-engineer ourselves in all of the different ways you heard this morning to fight off that threat. That's a bigger threat than worrying about Google.
It's quite clear from the audience reaction and just objectively in the industry that, again, media agencies have made so much progress in advancing their value to the marketplace and to the marketers. Yet, I think you all struggle with margins and the pressure still on the revenues. How, and this is, again, a question that's coming from the audience, but one we've also had in our dossier, how are you thinking about or looking for ways to, frankly, increase your revenues and or margins and help clients and marketers really begin to appreciate the value you're bringing to them in more financial terms?
Well, it's a big issue. Of course, it's one that we all sort of wrestle with every day, particularly when you look at a rather bleak economic forecast out there and you worry even more. But ultimately, John, you have to just keep on demonstrating the value and the worth of what you do to your clients and market it better. We're not very good at marketing what we do. You have to continue, because in the end it will be, as we said on this stage last year, a sort of Darwinian survival of the fittest, right? And I think, clients aren't fools. They will know that if they're really getting good value for their investments in media agencies, then they'll continue to make those investments. They don't want to put us out of business. But we must get away from this over-reliance on driving down prices through procurement, whilst we're spending most of our time saying how much importance there is in getting to the next stage, investing in the future, the big picture, the whole strategic thing, digital, yada, 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 and then 5 minutes later, we're in some haggling match about, whether it's 1% or 2% for a service, and that's the model we have to break.
I totally agree. I think one of the ways, and procurement has a good role in that, positive role in that is when we are able to reach some growth deals, some revenue share deals with our clients. We have some of those that have been very profitable for our clients and helping our profitability too. We need money to invest, as Dominic says. If we want to be this agency of the future, if we have to re-engineer ourselves, if we have to provide more and more services, if we need to hire all this talent, train all these people, we need money to do that. I mean, otherwise we will be the only industry to do it without money. And the money that we need to get is from our clients with whom we share the profits of those investments.
Just as Maria was talking there was a question that came up on the screen saying, can you see any chance of your two agencies consolidating? Which I thought I should pass this microphone to Mainardo. I think it must have been addressed to you.
Parlez-vous français, monsieur? Yes, with that, I would like to invite back Jack Klues, Alexander Schmidt-Vogel, Mainardo de Nardis, Nick Brien, Stephen King, and Mike Cooper. And thank you very much, Maria and Dominic.
Gather around. We'll have one or two final questions for everybody, and then if we'll do it the old-fashioned way. If there's any hand raising in the audience, if there's something particular that people want to ask of the group collectively or anyone individually, just obviously raise your hand, and we'll try and take a handful of questions from the audience. So, Michael, I know, has one question about transparency. My question really to the group, and we don't have to have everyone answer it, but as many as possible. What is the single thing that either makes you the most excited about the business ahead for each of you in the next couple of years, or the thing that really threatens you most? So anybody's free to take this question. Jack?
There you go. We'll do it again. Since obviously the audience and all my peer group have acknowledged that talent and the cost of talent and the recruitment retention is a big deal, let me give you another thought that troubles me, and I don't have a solution yet, but it's certainly, I'd put it on the table because I'd much rather debate and work through with our creative agency partners and answer to this rather than the R word that I said we wouldn't talk about again. And that is, we've got a situation where our clients' non-working or production budgets are built, and Alexander hit on this. So you've got, some of our clients produce 1, 2, 3, 10 spots. I don't know what the average cost of production is now for a 30 video spot. Say it's $300,000, and a client's budget is $1 million in production, and they produce, therefore, 3 or 4 spots. In the world we're all living in, where we are creating and evaluating and strategizing more and more possible channels and pipes for messaging, where are we going to find the 50 different pieces of copy to run in those places, or the hundreds, and how are we going to keep those refreshed? So the biggest challenge I think we've got, and one that I think we will not solve on our own, but will with other partners in the advertising business, is we need more content, commercially relevant, contextually relevant content, and clients' non-working and production budgets aren't going to go up any more quickly than often they're, the working, which is really the more important part.
My biggest fear is that we don't break the mold, which I think a couple of us have talked about earlier on, and we keep trying to sell our services based on this savings model of always trying to save clients money, and we don't concentrate on adding value and helping clients to build brands. So I really hope we can move on from that, and my biggest fear is that we don't.
I have one comment which is a rather positive one. What's most exciting for me is to experience that we changed in communication from the old dictatorial system, and I still lived in the system where it was so easy to put 1,000 GIP on people's heads. They had to inhale it, and they bought the products. The digital media released all those consumers. And today it's democracy. Not just in the communication industry, even in countries like China, the digital media release people. And now we are living in an environment where we have to sell twice. First, we have to sell the content to the people, that they accept the content, and then the content may sell the product. And I would wish I would be 22 and I would start again in a media agency, because I would know the next 20, 30 years I will be a creative. And of course it was exciting to transfer from an old-fashioned media planner to a strategist. But the next step will be to become a creative. And nothing is as exciting as creating something. Therefore, I believe, given all the problems, remuneration, etc., we are discussing, the next phase of media communication will be even more exciting than the last 10 years have been.
I think my biggest fear is speed of change, and I think we've all mentioned it, so it's not my specific one. The world is moving faster than we are. We are too conservative, we've got to accelerate, we've got to push it down and change. Personally, I love working in Asia because the attitude is so different, and everything is about making it possible, doing it tomorrow, and there is always a solution, while in the rest of the world, I think we're too conservative, and we've got to move on much quicker to do what our people and the talent we want to attract needs to be part of this industry and to continue to thrive in the future.
My biggest fear is much more basic than most of what has been said here. I'm optimistic by nature, and I think we will get the strategic planning. I will think we get on all those big issues. And what we may fail or not be as quick as necessary is in the basic infrastructure that we need to deal with all these changes, all this massive amount of data, all this new way of dealing with media, new way of planning, new way of buying, and maybe we will not be as quick in equipping ourselves to deal with the basic foundation of our business. That's my biggest fear.
I find it interesting, by the way, that yesterday we had in a real moment of candor Robbie Campbell, of Rainey Kelly Campbell-Rolfe days, saying, I wish I was a media person. I'd like to be increasingly and come back as a media person. And Alexander saying, I want to be a creative. So it's quite interesting as we all look ahead.
I think the reason why they say that is because the media change, so much of a new media defines new marketing. It's a tip of the spear of change. So I think I don't really have a fear. I think I have a lot of hope and optimism, because I think there's so much opportunity for all of us in our industry to redefine creativity from executional creativity, the ad, the website, the piece of direct mail, and be conceptual. And be conceptually strategic and conceptually creative. But I think, we've already said it, we've got to really push conservative mindsets. And I think there's a lot of conservatism in the client community, on the agency community, with our agency partners. And I think that's the biggest risk we're going to face if we're not looking to really challenge status quo, because we are all looking into the abyss of an interactive advertising model. And, you only have to attend some of these other panels that are going on, and there's new ways of working, new ways of thinking. John Hegarty said it very well. It's very hard, even for an agency as creatively brilliant as BBH, to develop the right creative content in media and channels that they don't really understand the way they work. You can be the best blacksmith in the world. When the motor car comes along, you're screwed.